one of the most renowned explorers of all time, Humboldt, says, quote, "It appears most evident to me that the monuments, methods of computing time, systems of cosmogony, and many myths of America offer striking analogies with the ideas of Eastern Asia, analogies which indicate an ancient communication and are not simply the result of that uniform condition in which all nations are found in the dawn of civilization." He continues, "In the ruined cities of Cambodia, which lies farther to the east of Burma, recent research has discovered teocallis like those in Mexico, and the remains of temples of the same type and pattern as those of Yucatan. And when we reach the sea, we encounter at Saku, in Java, a teocalli which is absolutely identical with that of Tehuantepec." End quote. It seems like, as we advance eastward from the valley of the Euphrates, Sumeria, at every step we meet with forms of art becoming more and more like those of Central America. As we keep going with these documentaries, memory seems to awake more and more, and the picture, previously obscure, seems to regain its clarity. According to Sanchoniathon, Uranos was the son of Autochthon, and according to Plato, Autochthon was one of the 10 kings of Atlantis. He married his sister Ge, and he had Uranos. He is the Uranos of the Greeks, who was the son of Gaia, whom he married. It was common in ancient times to a king to marry his sister or mother. Augustus Le Plongeon believed that Queen Mu was a historical Mayan queen whose life was documented in the carved bas-reliefs, statues, and paintings he found at Chichen Itza. He asserted that Mu and her husband, Prince Koh, were the inspiration for the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris. The Egyptian legend about Osiris being brother of Isis and marrying her is identical with that of Queen Mu, who married his brother Ko. But we are going to see Le Plongeon soon. By now, you got to know that the intermarriage inside the royal families was a divine commandment and not a degenerate behavior. For them, it was a way to maintain the blood pure. There were many avatars in this world. Those families, those persons, the first persons of our civilization, were in fact incarnations of gods in this earth. The Phoenicians keep telling us. Uranos had by Ge 4 sons, Ilus, El, who is called Kronos, and Betilus, Bet-El, and Dagon, which signifies bread corn, and Atlas, Tammuz. For the Greeks also, Uranos was the father of Kronos and the ancestor of Atlas. So, we see that 2 brother nations, as being the Phoenicians and Greeks, are showing us, by their records, an identical genealogy.
Huranos of the Phoenicians had a great many other wives. His wife, Ge, was jealous. They quarreled, and he attempted to kill the children he had by her. This is the same legend which the Greeks told of Zeus and Juno. In the Phoenician mythology, Kronos raised a rebellion against Huranos and, after a great battle, dethroned him. This is amazing. We are seeing that the Phoenicians and the Greeks were brother nations. Kronos gave Attica to his daughter Athena, as in the Greek legends. Quote, Kronos visits the different regions of the habitable world. He gave Egypt as a kingdom to the god Taut, who had invented the alphabet. The Egyptians called him Thoth, and he was represented among them as the god of letters, the clerk of the underworld. This shows us the relation of Egyptian civilization with the Phoenicians. There can be no doubt that the royal characters who formed the gods of Greece were also the gods of the Phoenicians. I've said in other videos that the Phoenicians were part of the Indian tribes of America. We see many inscriptions in different parts of America, and I've said that the Carians or Caribs were known for being a red race or a bronze race because sunburnings or because the paint that they used to wear in their skin. The Phoenicians were known as being a red race by the same reasons. The builders of the Central American cities are reported to have been a bearded race. The Phoenicians, in common with the Indians, practiced human sacrifices to a great extent. They worshipped fire and water, adopted the names of the animals whose skins they wore, that is to say, they had the totemic system, telegraphed by means of fires, poisoned their arrows, offered peace before beginning battle, and used drums. The extent of country covered by the commerce of the Phoenicians represents to some degree the area of the old Atlantean Empire. Their colonies and trading posts extended east and west from the shores of the Black Sea through the Mediterranean to the west coast of Africa and of Spain, and around to Ireland and England. They touched every point where civilization in later ages made its appearance. Strabo estimated that they had 300 cities along the west coast of Africa. Sanconiathon claims that the learning of Egypt, Greece, and Judea was derived from the Phoenicians. It would appear probable that while other races represent the conquest or colonizations of Atlantis, the Phoenicians succeeded to their arts, sciences, and especially their commercial supremacy.
and hence the close resemblances which we have found between the Hebrews, a branch of the Phoenician stock, and the people of America. There is a poem from the 4th century by Dionysius of Susiana, quote, "Upon the Syrian sea the people live, who style themselves Phoenicians. These were the first great founders of our world, who showed a path through seas before unknown, founders of cities and of mighty states. In the Scandinavian mythology, the chief god was Odin, the Wodan or Wotan of the Germans. He is represented with many of the attributes of the Greek god Zeus and is supposed by some to be identical with him. He dwelt with the 12 Aesir or gods upon Asgard, the Norse Olympus, which rose out of Midgard, a land halfway between the regions of frost and fire, which I suppose to be a temperate climate. The Scandinavian Olympus was probably Atlantis. Odin is represented as a great-looking elderly man with a long beard, carrying in his hand a spear and accompanied by 2 dogs and 2 ravens. He was the father of poetry and the inventor of the runic writing. The Chiapanese of Central America, the people whose language we have seen furnishing such remarkable resemblance to Hebrew, claim to have been the first people of the New World. Clavigero tells us that according to the traditions of the Chiapenese, there was a Wodan who was the grandson of a man who built the ark to save himself and family from the deluge. He was one of those who undertook to build the tower that should reach to heaven. He came from the east. The Lord ordered him to people America. He brought 7 families with him. He built a great city in America called Nakan, which means in Mayan, city of the serpents. Remember that the name of the serpent that tempted Eve was Nahash. He named Nakan like that because of his own race, which was named Kan, a serpent. This Nakan is supposed to have been Palenque. The date of his journey is placed in the legends in the 20th century BC. He also founded 3 tributary monarchies whose capitals were Tulan, Mayapan, and Chiquimala. He wrote a book containing a history of his deeds and proves that he belonged to the tribe of the Canes, or serpents. Cabrera claims that the Wotanites were Carthaginians. He thinks that the Chivin of Wotan were the Hivin or Givin, who were descended of Het, son of Canaan, Phoenicians. He claims that Cadmus and his wife Hermione were of this stock, and according to Ovid, they were metamorphosed into snakes, culebres. The name Hivites in Phoenician signifies a snake. Humboldt remarks,
we have fixed the special attention of our readers upon this Wodan or Wodan, an American who appears of the same family with the Wods or Odins of the gods and of the people of Celtic origin. Citing Donnelly in his book The Antediluvian World, there are many things to connect the mythology of the Gothic nations with Atlantis. They had, as we have seen, flood legends. Their gods Crotho and Satar were the Kronos and Saturn of Atlantis. Their Baal was the Bel of the Phoenicians, who were closely connected with Poseidon and Atlas. He continues, and attention, their language has a distinct relationship with the tongues of the Arabians, Cushites, Chaldeans, and Phoenicians. Now, as you see in the image, he is giving an extensive comparison of languages inside the three biggest families of language: Semitic, Aryan, and the Turanic language. I can assure you that it is difficult to be a high-level historian without the study of linguistics and comparative linguistics. This is shown by personalities as Max Müller, the most eminent authority in linguistics, I think, of the 19th century. As he had done an amazing work thanks to his great amount of knowledge in ancient languages of the three big post-Atlantean branches as being Semitic, Turanic, and Aryan. His knowledge, parting from here, allowed him to write works as, quote, lectures on the science of religion, which encompasses his worldview of comparative religion and surpass the modern books of, quote, comparative Indo-European religion, which are reductionist treatises and, for what I've seen, wrong in many regards. Because, of course, those modern scholars suffer from specialization syndrome and usually have a pretty basic knowledge in linguistics. If you know about linguistics, you can for sure recognize the names of deities, historical figures, and places as being the same. As Max Müller shows in his works, with the seemingly diverse nations as the Turanians, Semites, and Aryans. Because, word the redundance, history is confusing because the immense amount of different names given to the same places, nations, deities, and historical characters. Etruscans, being the supposedly mysterious nation of the pre-Roman Italy, are proven by many scholars as being part of the Turanian family. In the 19th century, some scholars reached the conclusion that 3,000 Etruscan inscriptions were also Altaic. Pronouns, conjugations, and declensions corresponding closely to those of the Tartar tribes of Siberia. The Etruscan mythology proved to be essentially the same as that of the Kalevala, the Finnish epic. Gantz Stenov, in his book Gotter oder Bulgaren,
says that the Budinos living in the valleys of Thracia and Macedonia migrated next to the zone of Finland, being Thracians a stock of the Turanian tribes. I spent 1 month studying the Finnish language, and I found it sharing grammatical structures as the cumulative Semitic languages. Cumulative meaning that it collects the majority of linguistic elements as being pronouns, moods, and tense in the verbs, which is also a grammatical characteristic of the Hungarian or Magyar language, which is said by modern academia as being similar with the Finnish language. Hungarians used to live in the zone of Central Asia before moving to their modern habitat, and it is said their language is different from the Aryan branches of languages. So figure yourself Finns and Hungarians having similar traits with the European nations, but at the same time are sharing languages that are grammatically identical with Turanian and Semitic languages of the ancients. So from where did the Uralic peoples came is for me not resolved, but more clear right now. And this establishes my worldview as being in accordance with the worldview of Max Müller, who thinks that the Turanians, Semitics, and Aryans shared a common root. According to Lenormand, Ancient History of the West, quote, "The early contests between the Aryans and the Turanians are represented in the Iranian traditions as, quote, contest between hostile brothers." The word bull comes from the ancient god Baal. I am pretty sure that the name Baal is an Atlantean word preserved by the Phoenicians, and that is one of the most petrified words in our unconscious. The horns of the bull are present in Bronze Age Europe, in the Vedic hymns as referring to Indra, in the cow-headed idols of Troy, and, as I showed, many of the, quote, sea peoples used to wear horned helmets. Indra is the representation of virility and the ancestor that had that particular essence. Indra is said in the hymns as being a great king and warrior who destroyed the dark color in India. The word Baal also comes from the Atlantean god Baal, because he is also the ball of fire, which is the sun. Just as Indra is also represented as being the sun. Dr. Leblanchon, who spent 4 years exploring Yucatan, says, quote, "1/3 of the Mayan tongue is pure Greek." Who brought the dialect of Homer to America? Or who took that of the Greek to the Mayans? Greek is the offspring of the Sanskrit. Is Maya, or are they coeval? The Maya is not devoid of words from the Assyrian. End quote. Desiree Jacquenay, in North America Review, 1881, says about his explorations in Central America, quote, "The Toltecs were fair, robust, and bearded. I have often seen Indians of pure blood with blue eyes." End quote. So we got the Toltecs, Wodan or Wodan, the Germanic legends of the land of Thule, linguists saying that the Thulean language of that mysterious tribe, described as having fair traits in Central America, is similar in structure with Aryan languages. Bronze Age Chinese people were from our species also, specifically from the Khan lineage, which I explained were survivors of the catastrophe. The word Khan means serpent in Mayan, and from here we got the dynasty of Tartarian Khans, which are probably related with the Thulean Mayans. Tartarian Khans, or also Scythian Khans, were present in China, and this is why Chinese dynasties are called dragon dynasties. Churchward mentions the first inhabitants of the Asiatic mainland as being the Uyghurs, descendants of the land of Mu, although I also give him the solidness of doubt. However, the Uyghurs are today in China, but again, just maintain the culture, instructions, and rights given by those civilizers' lineages of our own. The people responsible for the building of amazing monuments and pyramids, as those present in the province of Xinjiang, hidden by the Communist China government. I suppose that we were a majority in this country, as many of the depictions in seals and walls show. But remember, when I say I suppose, it is a supposition. What is sure is that the noble class was part of our species and had nothing to do with modern Chinese people. Although sometimes I suppose that maybe Chinese could be a mix of Mongoloids with our people, which will explain a lot of why Chinese are similar to us in some aspects. A learned Frenchman, Darien de la Copière, demonstrates that the Chinese is related with the Chaldean or Sumerian language, as I show here. He also says that cuneiform Sumerian symbols are similar to Chinese characters. So maybe those emerged from one original hieroglyphical alphabet, and I can recognize some of the words in Sumerian as being right. So here I am proving that the Chinese and Sumerians of that time, and not the modern users of the name, were related. So, as you may recognize, my videos are being a little bit more complex than before. And I recommend you to watch them with patience. As for me, understanding certain stuff took me a lot of reading and serenity while starting the process. Don't forget to share. See you the next time.